I'm Dora, sitting alone in my new office, the one that was once the domain of a man who tried to destroy me. I can't help but reflect on how far I've come. The sun streams through the large windows, casting a warm glow over the expensive desk. It's hard to believe that just a year ago, my life was on the verge of collapsing. It all started on a fateful Thursday morning at Zenith Enterprises. I had been with the company for 4 years, always the first to arrive and the last to leave. I was the reliable one, the quiet financial compliance specialist who ensured every transaction was above board. My colleagues often thanked me, saying they didn't know what they'd do without me. But in a matter of seconds, my world fell apart. Our CEO, Henry Thompson, a man in his late 50s with a reputation for being ruthless, burst into the conference room. His face was red with anger, and the veins on his temples were throbbing. Behind him, a projection screen displayed a spreadsheet with a glaring red number, $2,367,412. "Someone in this room is stealing from my company," he growled, his voice dropping to that dangerous quiet that powerful men use when they're about to destroy someone. "We have a discrepancy of over $2 million, and I want answers." I sat there, frozen, along with the other 12 members of our Special Projects division. There was Ethan from marketing, always with his tie a bit too loose. Lily from client relations, who had just returned from maternity leave. Jake, our tech guy who rarely spoke but could fix anything. And Sarah, our office manager who seemed to know everyone's secrets. As Henry paced around the room, he explained that financial irregularities had been occurring for 8 months. His external auditors had finally found the pattern. I felt a sinking feeling in my stomach because 8 months ago was when Henry had personally moved me to this team, saying he needed someone with my attention to detail. He slammed a folder on the table and locked his eyes on me. All these microtransactions, totaling $3 million, were approved right here in this room by someone who thought they were smarter than me. And that someone is you, Dora. You're a numbers person, always quiet, always watching, always documenting. He practically spat the last word. It's always the quiet ones who think they won't get caught. I tried to speak, but my voice failed me. I had always been the careful one, triple-checking my work. Now I was being painted as a thief in front of my colleagues. "Sir, there must be some mistake," I finally managed to say, my voice embarrassingly small. Henry laughed coldly. "Oh, I don't make mistakes, Miss Dora. But apparently you do. I've already contacted the authorities. They'll be here within the hour." The room started to spin. I couldn't believe what was happening. Someone whispered, "Check her computer." Our team lead, Mark, who had always seemed to resent my close work with Henry, said, "Already done. Found plenty." That's when I realized it was a setup. This wasn't a discovery. It was an execution. But then, a strange calm came over me. I reached for my phone, my hand steady. "Sir, you might want to see this," I said, my voice steadier than I'd expected. Henry sneered. "A confession? How thoughtful." "Not exactly," I replied. I pulled up the secure folder I'd been maintaining for 10 months, even before I joined this team. I handed him my phone, with a video playing on the screen. His face changed as he watched, first confusion, then disbelief, and finally, something that looked like fear. "You see, 10 months ago, I noticed some small discrepancies in the company's transaction logs. Patterns that didn't make sense. I took my concerns to my previous supervisor, but he brushed me off. So I started documenting everything: screenshots, recordings of meetings, backups of altered files. I wasn't suspecting fraud at first. I was just tired of having my concerns dismissed. When Henry moved me to the Special Projects team, I continued my documentation out of habit. I had detailed records of everything I touched, including the 6 times Henry had asked me to adjust certain client billing records. Each time, he explained it away as fixing accounting errors or dealing with client relations issues. I did as I was told, but I also quietly backed up the original data. It wasn't until 3 weeks ago that the pattern became clear. By then, I had 10 months of evidence showing exactly how $3 million had disappeared and whose instructions had made it happen. "You recorded our private meetings?" Henry whispered, his face ashen. "It's a one-party consent state, I replied. And I have much more than just recordings. The room went deadly silent. Everyone was watching this power shift. Henry tried to change the subject. These are confidential business matters. You've violated company policy. Interesting. That's your concern right now. I said, finding courage I never knew I had. Not the fraudulent transactions or the fact that you were about to have me arrested for your crimes. Henry straightened his tie and tried a new tactic. Everyone out except Dora. But no one moved. He shouted, "Now." Mark was the first to stand up. "I think we should stay," he said, looking at me with a newfound respect. Just then, Henry's phone buzzed. He glanced down and blanched. "This meeting is over. We'll discuss this privately, Dora." "No," I said, surprising even myself. "We won't. Everything in that folder has already been backed up to 3 secure locations, including my lawyer's office. You have 20 minutes until the actual authorities arrive, the ones I called this morning." Henry's face twisted with rage. "You stupid girl." "Don't," Sarah interrupted sharply. "She has enough to bury you already." The next 20 minutes were a blur. Henry barricaded himself in his office. Security arrived and people whispered in corners. I sat alone at the conference table, shaking so hard I had to grip the armrests. I had always lived my life by the book. I never jaywalked, filed my taxes early, and kept receipts for office supplies. And now, I had to choose between going to prison for someone else's crimes or fighting back against the most powerful person in the company. When the FBI agents walked in, I handed them my phone and 10 months of meticulously organized evidence. A female agent looked at me with something like pity. "You've been documenting this for how long?" she asked, scrolling through my files with raised eyebrows. "Since I first noticed something wrong," I said. Nobody would listen. "Well, they're listening now," she replied. As they led Henry out, he locked eyes with me one last time. "You'll regret this," he said quietly. "Nobody will hire a whistleblower." Maybe he was right. Maybe I had just torched my career to save myself. But as I watched him walk out, I realized I was tired of being afraid of disappointing people, of not being perfect, of raising concerns, of standing out. Over the next few weeks, the company imploded. Auditors swarmed our offices, and the board of directors held emergency meetings. A few executives resigned suddenly for personal reasons. Our special projects team was disbanded, and we were all placed on paid leave while they sorted through the mess. 3 weeks later, I was sitting alone in my apartment, surrounded by job listings but too paralyzed to apply. Henry's words echoed in my head. Then, my phone rang. It was Lily from the team. "Have you heard?" she asked without preamble. "Heard what?" I replied. "The board fired 4 more executives this morning. They're claiming they knew nothing about Henry's scheme, but the investigators found a lot of incriminating emails." I closed my eyes. "So everyone knew." "Not everyone," Lily said, "but enough to make this a much bigger scandal than just Henry." I should have felt vindicated, but I just felt tired. "There's something else," Lily continued. "The board is looking for internal candidates to help rebuild, people they can trust. They asked specifically about you, Dora." I laughed hollowly. "Me? The whistleblower?" "The person with integrity," she corrected. "The one who did the right thing at enormous personal risk." I didn't know what to say. For years, I had been invisible at work. I was valuable for my work, but never seen as leadership material. I was too quiet, too careful. "They want to meet with you tomorrow," Lily said. "Just think about it." After we hung up, I sat motionless, staring at the wall. This wasn't the vindication I'd imagined. It was messy, complicated, and terrifying. But maybe that's how real justice works, a slow rebuilding from the ruins. The next morning, I put on my most professional outfit and walked into the corporate headquarters. The security guards nodded at me with new respect, and employees whispered as I passed. I realized that Henry had been right about one thing. It is always the quiet ones. In the boardroom, I sat across from the board chairwoman, MS. Emily Reed. She began, "Miss Dora, I want to start by thanking you for your courage. What you did protected this company from far worse consequences." I nodded politely, but said nothing. I had learned that silence makes powerful people uncomfortable. Mr. David Chun, the company's lead counsel, continued, "We've conducted a thorough investigation. The fraud goes back 18 months and involves 7 executives, including Henry. 4 have already resigned, and 3 are contesting their termination." My mouth went dry. 7 executives knew or participated in the fraud. Mr. Chun clarified that the $2.3 million Henry accused our team of stealing was just what they'd found so far. I thought about my former teammates, whose reputations had been questioned. "What happens to my team?" I asked. Reed exchanged glances with the others. "That's partly why we wanted to speak with you. We're restructuring the company. Several departments will be consolidated, and we need people we can trust to help us rebuild. We'd like you to lead the new financial compliance division. You'd report directly to the board, with a substantial salary increase and the authority to build your own team." My heart raced. This was beyond anything I'd expected. A director-level position, multiple steps above my previous role. The kind of job that would normally require an MBA and 15 years of experience. "Why me?" I asked, genuinely wanting to understand. "Ms. Reed's professional expression faltered. "Frankly, Miss Dora, we have a credibility problem. We need someone with unimpeachable integrity. Someone who's proven they'll do the right thing even when it's difficult." Translation: they needed my reputation to save theirs, my whistleblowing as a corporate shield. "And if I say no?" I asked. "We'd understand completely, Mr. Chun said smoothly. "I assume I'd receive a generous severance package, excellent references, and an NDA?" I interrupted. The momentary silence confirmed it. They'd pay me to go away quietly if that's what I wanted. But I wasn't that person anymore. "I'd like to propose an alternative," I said, surprised by my own steady voice. "I'll consider the position, but I have conditions." The air in the room shifted. "Ms. Reed said cautiously, "We're open to discussion. First, my entire team gets cleared publicly, a company-wide email stating they've been exonerated, plus bonuses for the stress they've endured," I said. Mr. Chen scribbled notes. "That seems reasonable." "Second, I want to interview everyone in the finance department personally. Anyone who stays will report to me, and I need to trust them." More nods around the table. "Third, I want Henry's office." That stopped them. Henry's corner office was traditionally reserved for senior executives. "That's not standard for a director-level position," Mr. James from HR said. "Nothing about this situation is standard," I replied, meeting his gaze steadily. "Yes." Reed studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "Anything else?" I took a deep breath. "Yes, no NDA. I won't publicly disparage the company if you act in good faith, but I won't sign away my right to speak." The temperature in the room dropped. "That's highly unusual," Mr. Chun began. "So, is being falsely accused of embezzlement by your CEO?" I countered. For 45 minutes, we negotiated terms. By the time I left the boardroom, I had everything I'd asked for in writing and, most importantly, respect. The next day, as I walked into Henry's former office, a complex wave of emotions washed over me. There was triumph, but also sadness for what it had cost to get here. I ran my fingers along the desk where he'd once sat plotting my downfall. A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. Sarah stood there holding a small plant. "Office warming gift," she said, placing it on my desk. "Hard to kill, even for people who forget to water it. Like your career, apparently." I laughed, my first genuine laugh in weeks. "Have you heard from the others?" I asked. "Everyone's been called in for meetings today. There are rumors about reorganization." "About you?" She trailed off, studying my face. "So, it's true. You're running things now." "A department, not the company," I clarified. "And I'd like you to be my second in command." Her eyes widened. "Me? I'm office management, not finance." "You're organized, perceptive, and most importantly, you stood up for me that day when it would have been easier not to. I need people I can trust." Over the next week, I met with each member of our former team and dozens of others from finance and accounting. I hired Jake to build custom security protocols for our new department. Brought in Lily to handle external communications. Even Mark, who had initially suggested checking my computer, showed enough remorse and competence to earn a place on the new team. Only Ethan declined my offer. "I'm sorry, Dora, but this place is tainted for me now," he said. "I've accepted a position elsewhere." I respected his decision. The work was harder than anything I'd done before. 16-hour days became normal. As we dug deeper, we found more financial irregularities. Henry's scheme had tentacles throughout the company. Each discovery felt like vindication, but also reminded me how close I'd come to taking the fall for it all. 3 months into my new role, I received a text from an unknown number. "You think you've won? Enjoy it while it lasts." I knew immediately who it was from. My hands shook as I showed the message to Mr. Chen. "We'll handle this," he assured me. "Henry's under investigation by 3 different agencies. This will only make things worse for him." But that night, alone in my apartment, I couldn't shake my fear. Henry had been powerful and well-connected. What if he still had allies in the company? What if this was just the beginning of his retaliation? I barely slept, jumping at every sound. The next morning, I arrived at work with dark circles under my eyes. My phone buzzed with a new message. It wasn't Henry this time, but a news alert. Former Zenith Enterprises CEO Henry Thompson arrested on multiple fraud charges. The article included his mugshot, unshaven and hollow-eyed, nothing like the intimidating figure who'd once pointed his finger at me. The FBI had found evidence of similar schemes at his 2 previous companies. This wasn't his first fraud, just the first time he'd been caught. That evening, as I was leaving the office, I ran into MS. Reed in the elevator. "I assume you've seen the news," she said. I nodded. "The prosecutors called. They want you to testify." My stomach clenched. The thought of facing Henry in court, of having to relive that humiliating meeting, made me physically ill. "Do I have a choice?" I asked. "Legally, yes. Practically." She left the sentence unfinished. We both knew the reality. If I refused to testify, it would undermine everything I'd fought for. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for a Tuesday morning in early December. I spent the night before rehearsing my testimony with Mr. Chen, preparing for every possible question. "Just tell the truth," he advised. "That's all you need to do." Walking into the courtroom the next day felt like walking into battle. My charcoal gray suit was like armor, and my organized folder of notes was a shield. Henry was there, sitting beside his attorney, looking thinner. When he saw me, his expression turned venomous, but I felt nothing. He had no power over me anymore. When I took the stand, my voice didn't shake. I answered each question clearly, referring to my documentation when needed. I described the transactions, the pattern of fraud, and how Henry had positioned me to take the blame. Henry's attorney tried to paint me as an ambitious employee who'd turned on her boss to advance her career. "Isn't it convenient that you're now in a director-level position after accusing Mr. Thompson?" "There was nothing convenient about any of this," I replied. "I lost friends. I still have anxiety attacks. I check my locks 3 times before bed, but I didn't have a choice. It was either speak up or go to prison for something I didn't do." When it was over, I walked past Henry without making eye contact. Outside, reporters waited with cameras and microphones. "Miss Dora, how does it feel to take down your former boss? Will you continue working at Zenith Enterprises? Do you consider yourself a hero?" I pushed through them without answering. This wasn't about heroism or revenge. It was about survival. 6 months after that first accusation, Henry pleaded guilty to multiple fraud charges. The details were made public. He'd been siphoning money to cover personal gambling debts, creating elaborate cover-ups, and preparing to flee the country when the scheme began to unravel. He received 8 years in federal prison. The company survived, though changed. We lost clients initially, but gained new ones who appreciated our enhanced transparency measures. The DORA protocols, as they became known internally, set a new standard for financial compliance. My team, the people who'd been through hell with me, became the most cohesive unit in the company. A year to the day after Henry had stormed into that conference room, I called my team together.